it.
Oh. Oh yeah, make sure to mention that Nathaniel's internet goes out sometimes too.
Yeah, it
Right.
might go out.
Immediately here, same. It isn't on for me. This will be funny to watch. Here, Riley. Alright. We are back. This is actually our first live stream with on this channel, and it's going to be interesting. I will say we've got Nathaniel Beer. He not as well known as our other guest, but he's still pretty good at debating. And we've also got Caiden Cowger, which I'm sure most of you probably know him. He's got a very conservative channel, and he uploads a lot of videos. And just depending on your views, you may like them, you may not. But we each have two very different views here, so it should be interesting. So we are going to go ahead and get started with our first question. Let me just make sure this is working correctly, and it appears it is. All right, so Patrick Nanners, we'll go ahead and start with your question for both people. So before we start, actually, let me just explain how it's working. We'll ask a question, and then we will have Nathaniel respond and Caden respond, and then they'll both, like, after they each give their own opinion, then they'll argue about why they feel that way. Well, I wouldn't really put it as argue. I'd put it more as debate, because argue's more of like personal insults and stuff like that, and we don't really want that. So that's how it's going to work, and we'll go ahead and start with our first question from Patrick Nanners.
All right, thank you. For both of you, what is your view about abortion?
All right, we'll go ahead and let Nathaniel start.
Okay. So my view on abortion. Well, I just think if a woman wants to have an abortion, she shouldn't be told she can't have one. She should be allowed to do what she wants to do with her body.
Okay, Caden, over to you.
Okay, well, the thing is that, while you can say that a woman should have the decision on what she does with her body, it's not just her body that is involved. Beginning at 20 weeks, fetuses can start experiencing fetal pain, meaning that when you rip them apart in the mother's womb to abort them, they are experiencing every last ounce of that type of torture. It's barbaric, it's horrible, and it shouldn't be conducted.
I agree.
Nathaniel, what's your input on that?
Well, I can understand where he's coming from. I can understand the people who say they shouldn't. Because it is an embryo. And they can feel pain. But again, I'm just one who thinks that's a mother's body. And if that mother wants to do it, then I don't think the government should stop her from doing that. And it's a hard decision for a mother to make, to do that. So she's thought about it before she goes and does it.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, go ahead and.
Okay, let me ask you this. Pertaining to it's a mother's choice. Because let me ask you this: let's say that I am an adult and this woman is pregnant, all right, and let's say that she lives in a state where they have laws pertaining to destroying a fetus Like if I would punch, for example, if there would be a pregnant woman and I'd take my fist and I'd punch her in the stomach, and she would lose that baby, I would be charged with murder. So let me ask you: do you think that laws like that should be on the books, where I would be charged with murder for punching that mother in the stomach, not hurting her, but hurting her child and killing it? Do you think I should be charged with murder?
Well, I wouldn't say you should be charged with murder. Maybe
Okay,
assault, because you are punching a mother.
right. But I shouldn't be
Like,
charged with killing her child in her womb.
well, murder is a different thing. Murder is killing another human being that has been born and it's already alive. The mother is still taking care of the embryo. The embryo is feeding off the mother. So if the mother wants to abort that embryo, then she can. Now, if she doesn't want that to happen, then maybe she should file a complaint about you punching her in the stomach. Because you also shouldn't just go up and punch someone in the stomach without asking.
Okay. So let me ask this. So by what you're saying, unless a fetus is born, unless a baby is born, it's not considered a human being.
No. By
It's not. Okay. So let me ask you this then: if a fetus is not considered a baby until it's born, let's say that your due date is tomorrow, February the 24th, 2017. All right, that's your due date. Now the mother still has this child that's in her stomach, so that's in the womb. Could she go to an abortion clinic and say, "All right, you know what? I changed my mind. I know the due date's tomorrow, but I don't want this thing. Let's go ahead and abort it, even though the due date is tomorrow, and the baby does have the potential for life." Should that mother have the ability to abort her child?
Well, at that point, the embryo is fully developed. It's just waiting to come out. So at that
Okay,
point,
well,
the embryo is ready to sustain itself.
okay, then let me ask you this, because that's the viability argument, like from Roe versus Wade, where if the baby's viable and is capable of living outside of the mother's womb, then an abortion could be regulated up to that point. So let me ask you this: if you're going to say that, well, okay, as soon as the baby is able to live, then abortion should be regulated up to that point, because that is what you just said there. Should it be regulated at 20 weeks or even 19 weeks when babies have been born at that time and have lived?
Well, if the baby is born at 20 weeks, that's a premature birth.
But it can still live outside of the mother's
It
womb,
can
the
still
same
live.
as it could.
It can still live. But a premature birth is also very dangerous for that baby itself.
So you should kill it instead.
No, you shouldn't kill it. If it's going to live, you should let it live.
Okay, but should abortion be regulated up to that point? Because you said that a premature birth is very, very risky. However, do you think that it is a better opportunity to just kill it or to give it the chance at being born?
Well, I think that's a medical decision that the doctors and the mother,
Medical decision. Okay.
should make. Because a medical professional may come to you and say, this baby is not going to live. And you might just, if you choose, you could just put it out of its misery before it has to suffer that.
Because, or you could have a situation like with what happened with my little brother, where he was in incomplete previa, and many of the health professionals said, yeah, you know what, you should abort the child, you should abort the baby, because it's going to be putting you through a massive risk. You could potentially die from it. But, you know, you say, or the baby, so we could either save you or save the baby. But what could happen is that baby could also live. And that's what took place with my little brother. He was able to live, and my mom's fine. He's fine. And so, you know, I think it's better to give people an opportunity to be able to experience life rather than just saying, nope, we're going to kill it, especially when it's not just the mother's body that is being concerned here. It's also the baby that's involved as well.
Well, yes. And I'm glad that they're fine now. But
Mhm.
when it happens, the medical professional can come and recommend something. That doesn't mean you have to take it. If the mother wants to see the child through until natural death, or she wants to see if it lives, then that should also be her choice.
Yeah.
Just because she has the choice to end the baby doesn't mean she should take it. It's her choice.
But see, here's the thing that I do want to go back to, and I want to point out though, because you're saying that as soon as the baby is developed, as soon as the baby is able to live on its own, then, of course, we shouldn't be able to have an abortion at that point. Okay. However, because that's what I was saying, like abort it today when the due date's tomorrow, right? What's even able to live at 20 weeks? Like what I was saying before, it's able to experience pain, it's able to live, it's able to breathe. It has the potential for life. It is viable. So at what point? So let me ask you this: what point do you think that an abortion should be regulated?
I think abortion should be regulated. And I don't think abortion should be exactly regulated until the mother has come out and said if she wants it or not. It should not be regulated until about 3 months.
3
Because
months.
after 3 months, then it's pretty clear what's going to happen.
Go ahead.
Well, I just finished my statement.
So here's the thing. All right, 3 months is what you're saying that we should have it, right?
About that time.
Okay. Because there's a thing called the 20-week abortion bill. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, the 20-week abortion bill basically limits abortion to where if the mother keeps her child after 20 weeks, like goes all the way to 20 weeks, she can't have an abortion unless it's in the case of rape or life endangerment of the mother or incest. So would you support that?
That I would be more supportive of. I could compromise on that one because it does state that they can still have it if it is a medical concern for the mother, or if it is a rape victim, or if it is a concept of incest. So that I could compromise on.
Because what that is that's called the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act that was passed in the state of West Virginia. And what that does is that as soon as the baby is able to begin experiencing fetal pain, and when you rip it apart, it's able to experience that and feel that, then it regulates abortion up to that point to where it can't be conducted except with those exceptions. So you would support that?
I would be more supportive of that instead of just saying you can't get an abortion.
Okay. Because typically there are those exceptions that are in there, nevertheless.
Yes, and those exceptions are extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, well, there you go.
All right, so that wraps up that question. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the other one, which is my question for both of you. So my question is, what are your thoughts on gay marriage and gay rights? We'll go ahead and start with Caiden this time.
Okay. All right. Personally, I'm opposed to it. I look at a lot of the health aspects of homosexuality, and I also look at it pertaining to other issues that concern with health. And I don't think that unhealthy lifestyles or unhealthy types of behavior should be promoted or endorsed by the government. And I think that homosexuality or same-sex marriage in particular, when the federal government gives recognition to same-sex couples and that is federalized, I think that that is embracing an alternative lifestyle that has been proven to be unhealthy to those who practice it. And out of the compassion for other people that I believe that one is supposed to have, I don't think that you should necessarily support behavior that is going to bring harm upon a person. And it's that way not only with that issue, but with several other issues. I mean, we can even pull drug usage and stuff like that into this in same exact category. But pertaining to that issue in particular, there's a lot of research behind that that has revealed that this is unhealthy compared to traditional heterosexual relationships that are in the union of one man, one woman with concerning marriage. So yeah, I would support traditional marriage, and but not only that, I also believe that when you try to federalize the issue and try to use the Constitution to justify it, you're violating the Constitution because, as it says in the 10th Amendment, any issue that's not mentioned in the Constitution is to be left up to the states. Marriage is not mentioned in the Constitution, therefore it should be a state issue.
And Nathaniel, your thoughts on that?
Me, I personally think that people who want a homosexual relationship should be able to have one because because that's their choice. Because they're choosing to do that. I believe if they want to do that, then you should let them do that. It's love. It's not just something that you can go in and control. So if they love another person of the same sex, then you should let them love them.
Well, no one is necessarily saying that people cannot engage in, a homosexual relationship if they want to. No one's trying to ban, same-sex behavior or homosexual behavior. What we're talking about here is legal recognition of a union that attempts to uh, normalize a homosexual relationship when it's been proven to have unhealthy effects on people who practice it.
Well, again, because with certain laws you could stop gay people from being married, and gay people should not be stopped from being married if they want to be married.
Okay, so let me ask you this, all right? If a son wants to marry his mother, should that be legal?
If a son wants to marry his mother,
If a son wants to marry his mother, should that be legal? If he truly loves her and wants to be married to her, should that be legal?
no, that should not be legal.
Why should that not be legal?
Because the health effects of the chromosomes mixed together would have health effects on their children.
What if the mother isn't able to reproduce anymore?
Well, then I still don't think that should really be legal.
Why not?
Because a love between a mother and a son is a different type of love from loving your soulmate.
Maybe with you, but what if the son feels that his mother is his soulmate?
Well, his mother's not going to be his soulmate.
Who are you to say that? Who are you to tell him who he can and cannot love and how he can and cannot love his mother?
Well, his mother already loves his father. That's how he was born.
Maybe they're divorced. What if they're divorced?
Well, if they're the child should not be able to sleep with his mother.
Why not? Who are you to tell that child what he can and cannot sleep with, and who he can and cannot marry, and who he can and cannot love, and how he can and cannot love them?
Well, again, he could do that if he really wanted to, but the government.
So he should. So a son should be allowed to marry his mother, is what you're saying.
I'm not saying he should be allowed to marry his mother. I'm saying that they could do that if they really wanted to. I personally don't believe in it.
So you personally don't believe in that, but do you believe that it should be legal for the son to do that?
No.
No,
No, I
why
don't.
not? Tell me why.
Because for a son to marry his mother, that would just cause a whole thing.
What thing?
All issues and
What type of issues?
Well, a mother loving his son would have health effects on both of them.
Oh, so you would oppose it for health effects,
Yes.
just like I oppose homosexuality because of the health effects that it has on the people who practice that.
Well, I don't know of any health effects.
Okay.
Affecting.
Well, let me explain. Well, let me read some stuff to you because I want to share it with you because a lot of times this information is not revealed. They don't talk about it much because we've developed this type of state to where this issue is so controversial that we just completely ignore all effects and we rely purely on emotionalism, where who are you to tell somebody who they can and cannot love? Now, the reason why you oppose a son having a romantic relationship with his mother, even if the mother wouldn't be incapable of reproducing, is because you believe that it would have emotional effects on that person that would be substantial, that would be negative. And you don't want to see this son get involved in a relationship with one of his parents and cause emotional harm to himself. Well, if we look at the side effects that homosexuality can have on people, if we go to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, government organization, last year under the Obama administration, they released a study conducted that revealed very disturbing information pertaining to the negative health effects of homosexuality. Now listen to this. 1 out of 473 heterosexual men develop HIV. 1 out of 473 heterosexual men will develop HIV. What do you think that number is for people who practice homosexuality?
I do not know that number.
Take a guess. and I'll say it again, it's 1 out of 473 for heterosexual men. What do you think that number is for homosexual men?
100 and 375.
That would be a pretty big number, wouldn't it?
Yes.
1 out of 6 homosexual men have a risk of developing HIV compared to 1 out of 473, according to the Centers for Disease Control, government organization. So right there, clearly, with a huge number like that, there is a connection between HIV and homosexuality. And you can try to say that that's hateful, how dare you say that, and all that type of stuff. Like, some people would respond, but it still doesn't change the facts, and it still doesn't change the information. 1 out of 6 homosexual men will develop HIV compared to 1 out of 473 heterosexual men. Now, if we also go in there to the heterosexual men, and we look at how many heterosexual men developed HIV because they did not have sexual relations outside of a married relationship, or they had relations outside of a married relationship, be it adultery or be it having premarital sex, that number will be the overwhelming majority of that 473 mark. So what I'm saying is that harmful behavior, even including sexually harmful behavior, should not be promoted or endorsed by the government. And that's a very big piece of information that a lot of people aren't aware of that come directly from the government. So what I'm saying is that if you are going to oppose incest marriage, if you're going to oppose a son marrying his mother, even if the mother is incapable of having children because of the mental health effects that it will have on the son, then you can't support homosexuality either because of the health effects that it has on them, that affects them negatively. Because the connection is very clear. All you have to do is do the research. And it's right there, as clear as day, black and white.
I can see the research there.
Mm-hmm.
But the research between that and the health effects of a mother and son are different.
How so?
HIV is a sexually transmitted disease.
Correct.
The health effects between a mother and a son are genetic. Those would be genetic health effects.
Okay.
So you can't control genetic health effects.
You can't control some STDs either.
That's true, you can't.
Right.
But you can also try and prevent them.
You can also try to prevent the genetic health effects that would happen between a mother and son as well.
But genetic health effects will happen. They're genetic.
No, not necessarily, because if you use the same type of protection that you would use in a homosexual relationship between the mother and son, it would still prevent the same type of diseases that could be contracted, or the same type of relations that could be contracted. Because if the mother's incapable of having a child, there's not going to be anything that's going to happen, as likely anyway, if you would use the same type of protection that you would use in a homosexual relationship. And that's still not guaranteed to be successful in either one.
Okay, well, I just think HIV is a disease anyone could get.
But it's more susceptible to people who practice homosexuality. That is less than half of 1%.
But it's still susceptible to you and me, a heterosexual man.
1 out of 473 compared to 1 in 6.
That's still a risk.
Yeah, but look at the risk. I mean, 1 out of 6 compared to 1 out of 473. That is a massive number.
That is a massive number, but it's still a risk.
Less than half. Okay, listen. Less than half of 1% of heterosexual men will contract HIV. That's compared to a 1 in 6 chance of homosexual men contracting HIV. There is clearly a connection between HIV, or a greater connection with HIV and homosexual behavior than HIV and heterosexual behavior. Would you agree with that? Because that's what the graph simply shows.
From that research, you can conduct that, but there's still connections between HIV and heterosexual relationships.
Right, but it's not as great. A matter of fact, it's less than 1% compared to 1 out of 6 with homosexuals. So clearly, when it's less than 1%, it's not the best argument.
And I can see that. But it's still a risk of a sexually transmitted disease.
Right.
which can happen to anyone.
Right. But see, what I'm saying is that it's a greater risk pertaining to members of the LGBT community. So here's the thing. If you are going to completely ignore this, clear, massive connection between HIV and also homosexuality, then why would you oppose, a son marrying his mother? It doesn't make sense. Or I'll make it even easier for you. Let me ask you this. Do you think that it should be permissible for a son to marry his father?
No, it's the same reason.
Why should it be no, hang on a minute. Why should it be the same reason? Because the father is not able to reproduce, neither is the son, so there's not going to be, any type of pregnancy that's going to take place as a result of it. So why not?
It's still genetics. They still share chromosomes, and those chromosomes will be affected by their
No,
relationship.
no, it wouldn't. Chromosomes are already in your body and already created during the birth process. When you're developed, the chromosomes are already developed. All right, when you're born, they're developed.
Yes, but
Okay. So
but they can also be affected.
how?
Diseases and other things from genetics can go in and affect chromosomes, and it's not
Right,
just
but diseases that are contracted from homosexuality can also have the same effect. And I'm sure that there are also alternative ways to develop similar types of genetic effects that you're trying to come up with by practicing other types of stuff that you would perfectly find permissible. So the thing that I'm asking you is pertaining to that in particular, a relationship between a son and a father, there's not going to be genetic effects outside of the effects of homosexuality. I mean, you can try to come up with it, but the reason why incest is such opposed by people like me is because a big reason, we believe it's morally wrong, but it's because of what can happen to the child. But here's the thing. I mean, we can even get into the emotional effects of people who practice homosexuality, of where they are more likely to experience depression, they're more likely to commit suicide, and oftentimes that's said that, like, people on the opposing side typically say, well, that's because they're bullied, and that's because they're ridiculed and all this stuff. But the thing is, if we go and we look at how horribly members of the black community were ridiculed, which I think that we could agree, they were lynched,
yes.
they were hung from trees, they were treated poorly. They have very low suicide rates compared to the rates of those who practice homosexuality. So I think one could also conclude that there are emotional health effects that come along with practicing homosexuality as well. Because what I'm saying is that when the rates of suicide are far less in the black community, when they were oppressed much more than members of the LGBT community, but the LGBT community has higher suicide rates, there's more emotional instability that takes place among the homosexual community than among the black community, which would conclude that there is more of a risk in general of developing depression or suicidal thoughts by participating in homosexual behavior. And see, evidence shows, research shows from the CDC, from government institutions, that there are clear connections. There are clear connections between negative health effects and homosexual behavior. And, that's the thing. It's so as clear as day that when men who practice homosexuality have a 1 in 6 chance of contracting HIV compared to 1 out of 473 heterosexual men, 1 out of 473 heterosexual men, that is less than half of 1% for heterosexual men, and that is a 1 in 6 chance for homosexual men, nearly 25% for homosexual Hispanic males, and approximately 9% of white homosexual males, 50% for black homosexual men. So, I mean, when you look at all of these facts and these numbers pertaining to the negative health effects of homosexuality, and how can you not oppose that based upon that information, but say, well, on the other hand, with cases like incest and all that, well, it's very clear that these people are going to be experiencing emotional, health effects pertaining to incest, so I can't support that. But on the other hand, even though this lifestyle over here, homosexuality, has negative health effects too, I'm going to support that because that is a movement in America that seems to be gaining steam, and I don't want to deny them the opportunity to love who they want to love. You can make the same argument for incest. You can make the same argument for polygamy. Who are you to tell somebody who they can and cannot love? Who are you to make the decisions who they can and cannot be with? Because I can make that argument between a son wanting to have a relationship with his mother, a daughter wanting to have a relationship with her mother, or a son wanting to have a relationship with a father. Who are you to tell that son who he can and cannot love if he so desires?
Well, actually, I'm no one to tell him who he can and cannot desire.
You're no one. So there you
Yeah.
go. So do you think that it should be legal then?
I don't think it should be legal. I don't think anyone should tell you whether or not you can or cannot.
So
I
well,
just support gay marriage. I just do. It's just
okay.
in
Okay,
my
let me
body. I personally do.
Okay, well then let me ask you this, okay? In the state of West Virginia, it is illegal to marry somebody that you are related to. Okay? Do you think that that law should be repealed?
I do not think that law should be repealed. No,
Why?
because that we've gone
You
over
just-
this.
I know, but you just said that you are no one to tell somebody who they can and cannot love, right?
Right, and I
So-
can't
so-
tell
so
them.
who are-
if
so-
they want to
so-
do that, they're going to do it no matter what.
Right.
I just think gay people should be allowed to do it.
But why do you think, why is there a double standard there? Why, even though there is negative health effects attached to homosexuality, why do you think that there should be a different standard for that compared to an incest relationship?
Well, there's negative health effects associated with all types of sexual behavior.
Right, so why don't we legalize everything?
Because legalizing everything would not solve problems.
What problems exist?
The problems here are just that a man and a man or a woman and a woman want to get married.
Right. A man and a woman want to get married. A son and a mother want to get married, and you're prohibiting that from happening.
Because a son and a mother getting married, again, genetically would not work.
Okay, a father and a son wanting to get married. Genetically, that does work.
Genetically, that wouldn't work. Because
How would it not work?
they
Tell
still
me
share-
how that would not work.
They still
Even though
share-
they shared genes, okay? How would that still not work?
because they still share genes. It would affect them on the genetic level.
How?
They share genes, so involving themselves in a sexual relationship between themselves would affect their genes. The genes do not affect when just a man and a man.
Your genes don't change. Genetic modification is something that, they're working on, but genes don't change like that. Neither do chromosomes. Chromosomes you are born with that. You're born with DNA, you're born with genes, you're born with chromosomes. Now, what can happen is that there can be genetic things that can happen to your child if you have a child with somebody that you're close relation to. But by a father having relations with his son, there's nothing that can come of that other than the negative effects that can take part from homosexuality. And if something would be picked up by the son, it would be an STD. So I don't fully know if you understand how this stuff works.
Yes. Well, I'm just going to be blunt with you. I just think gay people should be allowed to be married and not incest.
Right. But see, that's the thing. Like I said before, and I'll go back to my previous remark, there are negative health effects in both types of relationships, in homosexual relationships and also in incest relationships. So if you were going to say that we should consider health effects when discussing issues like this, then you have to oppose both. You can't just oppose one and support the other. Otherwise, you come across as having a double standard. So you either have to support all or support nothing, because it just seems what is popular at the time is what seems to be going on. But I'm not, and I'll say this, I'm not going to blame you for it, because a lot of this information isn't presented to the public as it should be. But I encourage you to research and look into that too, because that information is out there if you look for it, and from credible organizations. Don't just look at these little things online. Look for credible organizations, and it exists. It's out there.
Okay, and I will. But as
Okay.
of right now, I just believe they should be allowed to be married.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next question. We're gonna have Bo read his.
All right. My first question is, what are your personal opinions on the Not My President movement that is taking place in our country right now? You can start, Caden.
Demount my president. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and let that. I started last time. I'll go ahead and pass it over to him.
All right. You go ahead, Nathaniel. Nathaniel.
Are you there, Nathaniel?
Let's go ahead and have you start, Caden, then.
Okay, I think I scared him with the whole mother and son thing. Okay, so just remind me, with with the Demount My President movement, we're talking about the Not My President thing, right?
Yeah, the Not My President's Day
Not
that
My-
happened in New York.
Okay, yeah, it's ridiculous. The thing that gets me about this whole thing is that we have had a lot of riots even taking place since Donald Trump was elected as president. And if you remember when the Tea Party was around, they had this big thing where the media was referring to the Tea Party as being nothing but astroturf. They are nothing but a big angry mob. And here it's just a bunch of, middle-aged Americans and elder Americans with a lot of young guys thrown in there too, but predominantly middle-aged. And they were peaceful. They cleaned up. They didn't make a mess. They didn't leave stuff behind. Everything was clean. They were very respectful. It was just civil protests, and it was against the Obama administration. But all of a sudden, they're hateful, they're bigots, they're this, they're that, they're astroturf, they are just a big angry mob. But then as soon as this stuff happens, where they are literally breaking the windows of stores, of businesses, destroying businesses, setting cars ablaze, blocking streetways, all this stuff, no, those are peaceful Americans that are just expressing their opposition to the president. They should be honored. They're patriot. I mean, that's a way that the media recognizes this stuff, and that's complete hypocrisy. But, as we just learned in the last conversation, sometimes there's a lot of double standards that can take place among the liberal ideology. But the thing is, with this entire case, Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He is the president of the United States. Whether you want to admit it or not, he is the president. And I look at it this way. I got through 8 years of Obama. I think that liberals can get through 8 years of Trump.
All right, is Nathaniel here, or is he still AFK?
Maybe his internet went out.
Yeah, that could be a possibility. So, we're going
Do
to
you
go
have
ahead.
any?
What's that?
I'm
Do you have
telling you,
any?
I'm
Nathaniel lost internet, he's telling me.
scared him.
Oh.
Oh, am I here?
Yep, you're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was telling you, the whole thing I was discussing earlier scared him off.
Okay. Are there any serious questions down in the chat? Does
Yeah,
not seem to be
ask like serious questions in the chat. Like, we'll go ahead and get
until
to it.
Nathaniel gets back.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and get to
Well-
some. And
Well, Ethan had a question about gun control.
all right.
Me.
That's a little bit too easy, but go ahead, Caden.
Okay.
But
Gun control. Well, Second Amendment. But yeah, I of course oppose gun control. I mean, Second Amendment guarantees us the right to keep and bear arms. So, and the reason why the founding fathers created the Second Amendment, and I'll explain this. Like, you guys know Joe Manchin. He's been on TV a lot of times. He's one of our senators from the state of West Virginia. He was one of the head Democratic honchos that was advocating for gun control while serving in the Senate after he released that campaign ad here in West Virginia. I'm going to defend West Virginian Second Amendment rights. Okay. All right. Sure, Joe. He gets to Washington, and he ends up being the head liberal in the Senate fighting for gun control. So it's quite funny. But the thing is, with Joe Manchin in particular, one of the things that he would always say when he was on MSNBC and networks like that is that he would say, well, we really have to, no, you don't need an AR-15 to go duck hunting. He always tried to make these, what he referred to as weapons of war. Like he acts like it's a nuclear bomb or something. Weapons of war. A semi-automatic is a weapon of war, according to Joe Manchin. An AR-15 is a weapon of war, although they don't use AR-15s in the military. They're automatics. AR-15s are semi-automatics. The thing is, is that the founding fathers, despite what Manchin believes, despite what liberals believe, they didn't create the Second Amendment to go duck hunting. And the reason why they created it is so we would have protection against potentially a tyrannical government that could develop in the United States. And they wanted us to have the ability to be armed in case something like that would occur. Okay, I mean, it was George Washington that said, "A free people ought to be armed. A free people ought not only to be armed and disciplined, but they should have sufficient arms and ammunition to maintain a status of independence for any who might attempt to abuse them, which would include their own government." Jefferson said, "The biggest reason for people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to protect themselves against tyranny and government." So that's the reason why the Second Amendment was developed, so we would have the ability to protect ourselves against a potentially tyrannical government that could arise in the United States. This was just a way for the American people to have better security in ensuring that they would not have their rights taken away. It's a last resort to protect our rights granted to us in the Constitution by the founders.
That's a very good point.
There you go. Yeah.
It still doesn't look like Nathaniel's back.
Yeah. What happened to him?
That's a good question. I think he got
His
his
internet went out.
internet.
He lost.
He lost
Okay.
internet.
Are there any more serious questions in the chat?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and let Caiden respond to these until Nathaniel gets back and we can go on with the debate. So for right now, I guess it's just going to be more of an interview.
Okay, interviewing Caiden Cowger. Let's go ahead.
Wait, can I ask one of my questions that I had before
Yeah,
I
go
figured
ahead.
out we were... All right. What was it like being in middle school, having a YouTube channel, having a large following, but also being extremely hated by liberals and a bunch of people in general?
Well, in the beginning, it was not very good. I mean, you received a lot of, I received death threats from all that, received hate mail messages, thousands of those things, and that was crazy. I mean, eventually you get to the point where you begin to adjust to it, and you, quite honestly, I mean, you get to the point where you just don't care what people think, because I mean, when you're young, you want to be loved. You want to be loved by everybody. You want people to like you. But then, after stuff like that happens to you, and people just really, in some circumstances, are not, they're so opinionated because they're uneducated on various issues and they hate you for your opinions. They're unable to respectfully disagree with you. You begin to be able to look beyond that. And basically, to put that into context, it's just like before you walk into a room and you wonder what people think about you. Prior to that, you walk into a room and wonder what you're going to think of them. That's really what it does to you. And you got to develop thicker skin and develop a way of just overlooking what people say and not really caring what they have to say pertaining to their opinion of you. Because basically, a lot of circumstances, what happens is that, people just develop this instant, immediate negative opinion of you to the extent of where, like you said, they hate you simply because of some of your personal beliefs. That is one of the dumbest things that you can do. There's no reason to hate anybody, especially because, they of their, personal political beliefs. I mean, they're entitled to that. This country was founded upon disagreeing opinions, and I think that it's very dangerous when you begin to develop the mentality that anybody who says anything that you disagree with should automatically be hated, is worthy of being hated, and is a bigot, should not have the right to speak their mind, and should be ridiculed. I just don't. I don't agree with that. I mean, it's just like what we're seeing with a lot of these colleges where they are regulating the First Amendment. The freedom of speech was created based upon protecting speech that is deemed offensive. It's not meant to protect, this flower and rose petals type thing, where everything is love and peace, peace and love. No, it wasn't designed to protect that. It was designed to protect speech that was considered to be controversial. And when we get to the point in America where we're saying that, no, that's hate speech, no, that's offensive, oh, you're a bigot, oh, you're hateful, oh, you're this, oh, you're that. Well, not only is that unconstitutional, it's un-American. But that's exactly what we've been seeing with a lot of these colleges and with a lot of younger conservatives, or excuse me, not younger conservatives, younger Americans, I mean, that tend to lean more towards a socialistic type of government. So, yeah, it really, you get beyond that. It's but you build up an audience, you get a listening base, and while you do have your haters, you also have people who do listen to you and enjoy what you have to say. So it's nice to also be able to give people who might not necessarily have the same ability to broadcast on the radio or express their opinions or have the resources to do that or the outlet to do that to represent their values and present that to the public to try to persuade more people to developing the same type of mindset. So that's what that's how that worked out.
That's that's very good. I personally watch all your videos,
Well, I appreciate
and
it.
I leave likes.
That is great. You are one of very few.
So,
our follow, our biggest audience is on the radio, but yeah.
Yeah.
so have you ever do you think your follower base has gotten bigger as far as people that support you, or has it stayed the same, or
Yeah.
has it gotten worse?
Well, typically, how it works with me personally, people who tend to dislike me are the ones who are in the comments section, and they're on YouTube. All right, and YouTube is really just a very small fraction of the people that actually listen to the show because, like, we broadcast on WXMB 1015 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WDUQ FM 99.1 up in Wheeling, West Virginia. We're on two stations down south, one in Florida, one in Florida, and one in Georgia. And so our main audience comes from our radio station affiliates. So we have more support and more of a listener base that is in agreement with what I have to say through by actually listening to the show rather than just YouTube. So you basically what happens on YouTube is that liberals go to my channel just to get ticked off, and they leave comments. I mean that's pretty much why you get so much negativity there. But pertaining to the radio audience and everything, yeah, they're the best. They're a good group of people. They're dedicated and they make up the majority of my audience because then they listen to what you have to say in context rather than just clips. So that's good too.
Okay, I'm back.
All
right, you're
sounds
back.
Good.
Didn't mean to scare you away there, Nathaniel. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just my internet's been going out.
Russians.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back, so we can finally get on to another question for the debate. I'll go ahead and say this one. So this is probably going to be controversial as well, but what are your thoughts on the legalization of marijuana for recreational use? We'll go ahead and start with Nathaniel because Caiden started last time, technically.
Well, I personally haven't experienced a lot of information with it about what it does of the natives or the positives. As of right now, I think it's a fine thing if the people are of legal age.
Okay. Caiden, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I highly oppose marijuana usage. See, the thing is that it goes back to the remarks that I was making pertaining to homosexuality. I mean, the thing is that see, personally, I hold the belief that harmful behavior should not be encouraged by government. It doesn't matter if it's homosexuality. It doesn't matter if it's the incest thing. It doesn't matter if it's drug usage. It should not be promoted by the government. And there was a landmark study that linked marijuana usage just recently to heart attacks. That was reported by the Daily Mail over in the United Kingdom. And they found that it increases the risk of getting schizophrenia. It triggers heart attacks. And this was conducted by a health organization. And it's just absolutely not right. I mean, oftentimes they try to say, well, look at all the positive effects that can have on people about, reducing this, reducing that. You have to weigh out the negative health effects along with the positive health effects that it can have on people. Because one of the other things that it's also been found to do is that it changes the shape of your brain. You have a thing called the orbitofrontal cortex that is in towards the center of your brain, basically. And basically, what this part of the brain controls is all of your feelings of pleasure, your feelings of happiness, and stuff like that. And oftentimes they try to say, well, this is not a an addiction. You can't become addicted to weed. That it's all just simply a mental type of addiction where it's psychological, where you feel if you get addicted to it, you feel like you have to have it. It's not a physical addiction. And I would disagree with that because what happens is that when you smoke marijuana regularly, and you're going to smoke marijuana regularly if it's recreational or if it's medical marijuana. Because if it's medical marijuana, aren't you going to be smoking it quite often because you want to try to kick out whatever you're trying to use the marijuana to cover up the symptoms for it to cover up? Yeah, you're going to smoke it quite a bit because you don't want those symptoms to be out there, like with Parkinson's disease and everything else. But the thing is that when you smoke weed, it causes the shape of the orbitofrontal cortex, part of your brain, to change, to expand, to where it begins to crave marijuana, and you begin to desire marijuana in order to relax. In other words, a lot of people found it hard to relax without smoking weed or taking weed somehow, through brownies or whatever. But they begin to, crave marijuana to try to give them this feeling of relaxation, to give this to provide this feeling of pleasure and happiness, because that's what the brain is now reprogrammed to crave, to desire, in order to relax. So rather than doing it naturally, it's now become reliant on marijuana, and with it being linked to schizophrenia, according to the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, and after this article was published in the United Kingdom, it has been quite concerning pertaining to the health effects of marijuana. And I don't think that drugs should be given, this type of legalization status. Marijuana is a gateway drug. I don't care what people say. It is a gateway drug because people always typically start with alcohol, then they transition to marijuana. And for marijuana, they transition onto other stuff, be it psychedelics, be it heroin, be it, meth and stuff like that. Marijuana is on the strand, is on the pathway to going to these other types of drugs. Not everyone that smokes marijuana will go on to these more powerful drugs, but a lot of people are on these more powerful drugs. The overwhelming majority have at one point in time smoked with marijuana, and more than likely it was in the beginning, and they transitioned to something harder, and that served as a gateway to these other things because the marijuana wasn't able to satisfy them anymore, and they wanted a greater high, so they went to greater things. So I personally don't agree with it for that, based upon the health effects that it has on people. I oppose it for that reason, and just like the other positions that I had previously.
All right, let's have.
Wait. Actually, there's some things in the chat, and I've seen other people say on social media, stuff like that um, that alcohol and all forms of tobacco are more harmful, and so do you think those should be illegalized as well?
Well, here's the thing pertaining to all that, all right? Personally, when you really want to get down to it, I will recommend people not to drink alcohol, all right? I have had family members that have become alcoholics and stuff like that, have completely made a mess of their lives based on that. Now, in this day and age, it'd be pretty hard to take out alcohol because of how it's expanded, and, more than likely it's just not going to happen. But to use that as an argument, well, we have alcohol legalized, well, we have tobacco legalized, so therefore, why not legalize marijuana? I think that's pretty much of a poor argument. If you're going to be saying, well, there's much worse stuff out there than marijuana, well, what kind of argument is that? Even though you are acknowledging that, yeah, marijuana is not very good, marijuana is harmful. So you think we need more harmful substances legalized? I don't think so. Marijuana or alcohol destroys your liver. Yeah, it destroys, your mind included, and you can die of alcohol poisoning. There's a lot of negative health effects of alcohol. Cigarettes will give you cancer, but the difference between cigarettes and marijuana and alcohol, cigarettes do not cause your thinking or your perception of things typically to be altered like marijuana and alcohol can. It's a mind-altering drug, marijuana is. Tobacco is not. Now, do I support tobacco usage? No, I don't. Every time that you put a cigarette in your mouth, you're putting a stick of cancer. Do you think that is smart? But to make the argument, well, this stuff is harmful, so let's legalize more harmful stuff, I don't go for that.
All right. Let's go ahead and give Nathaniel a chance to talk here.
Again, like I said, I don't really know all of that thing. I'm with Caden on this one. I don't recommend alcohol or cigarettes or anything like that. I think it's kind of a stupid thing to do to put your body through.
Yeah.
And I do kind of agree. I would say have more tests on marijuana before we just legalize it recreationally.
All right. So
All right.
let's go ahead and move on to another question that Nathaniel, I'm pretty sure, is a bit more fond on is building up our military. Do you think we should keep it as it is, make it smaller, or make our military bigger, like much bigger, or however big?
Well, starting with me.
Um,
I
sure.
started last time, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, See, I'm a conservative. I am definitely a conservative, and Ronald Reagan held the belief that conservatism is a three-legged stool. It consists of three legs or three principles: social conservatism, fiscal conservatism, and the belief in peace through strength. And personally, I favor a strong national defense. I believe that we should build up our military. Under the Obama administration, he signed a deal where we reduced 1,500 of our nuclear warheads, while Russia signed the same deal but increased theirs. So I don't think that Russia should have the advantage on us pertaining to the condition of our military, considering how much the Democrats hates Russia now all of a sudden, because Obama was wanting to work with Putin. You remember that. He said, I'll be more flexible after my election in 2012. And that was a big controversial thing that was in the news right there. So it appears that the Democrats can sometimes have more connections to Russia than the Republicans. But the thing is that considering that, I want to be the head superpower. I don't want Russia to be the head one. I want us to be that one. I want us to have a strong military. I believe that we should be the strongest person in the world because I want you to think the strongest nation in the world because I want you to think of this. All right, Patrick, if there is a guy that is as big as a house, I mean, a tall, tall guy, taller than your father, wouldn't that scare the daylights out of you to go and pick a fight with him? If this is a big, bulky guy, would you want to pick on him?
Uh, Wait, is that directed? Who's it directed
Yeah,
toward?
yeah, towards you, Patrick.
All right. Probably not. No.
Of course not. Right. Why not? Because that guy will beat the living snot out of you. So it's the same way. When you build up your military to where you have a strong national defense and you have a strong military, nations of the world aren't going to want to mess with you because they know that if they do, they're going to get whooped. So that's, one of the reasons why I personally believe, yeah, we should build up the military. Yeah, we should have a strong national defense. I do think that we should be focusing more here at home rather than getting involved in all world conflicts. But I believe, it's best put by Donald Trump, America first, and that's a position that I take.
All right. And Nathaniel, your thoughts on the military?
The military is a good thing. And I'm not opposed to, say, building it up. I think it's a good thing to have a strong military. I just think we spend more money on our military than any other country in the world. So I just think every now and then we could focus a little bit more money on, say, education or just doing something else other than putting all the money into the military. But I'm not saying we should just give up on our military or we should make it smaller. It's good. It's a good size, and it needs to be better. But we don't need to focus all our money on it.
All right. So
Now, yeah, there is one thing I want to say in response to that. Now, because I've heard that phrase used quite often that, the United States spends more money on their military than all the other nations in the world. Well, in order for us to have a stronger military than all the other nations of the world, we're going to have to spend more money on our military than all the other nations in the world. Because when you want more of something, you've got to outspend the other countries in building it up. And right now, I mean, there are two superpowers, us and Russia. And in order for us to be the more dominant superpower, we have to be willing to spend more money on our military than Russia. So I do think that there are cuts that we could make concerning that we could contribute to education more, but I don't think that it's with the military.
all right. So it sounds like you both have a close to the same opinion on it, just a bit different. So we'll go ahead and move on to one that's been very popular throughout the comment sections, and that is religion in schools. Do you think that schools should have like um, they should? I don't know exactly know how to put this. Do you think teachers should be able to pray in the classroom or allow give Bibles out or whatever? We'll go ahead and start with Nathaniel.
Uh, yes. If they want to pray, that's their right to pray. And if they want to like try sharing their beliefs, they should do that. But if someone doesn't want to accept their beliefs or they have their own beliefs and that's not theirs, then they should also be allowed to not fully accept that. But it shouldn't be a thing that religion is banned in school. Because religion can be a good thing. And it should and if you want to express it in school, then you should be allowed to.
All right. And Caden, your feelings on religion in school?
Nathaniel, I am so proud of you. Oh my gosh, he's turning into me. Yeah, no, yeah, I believe that prayer should be allowed in school. I mean, I've always felt that way, and I think that oftentimes we've tried to drive that out. And see, the thing is that our founders prayed. All right, George Washington prayed. John Adams definitely prayed. They pray before the Senate. They pray before the House of Representatives. They pray in government. The president sworn in on the Bible. Uh, the reason why the founders created, part of the First Amendment to include freedom of religion is to protect the freedom of religion, and to say that that is should be banned in the school system, it's crazy. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm sure that many of you guys don't know this, but our great grandparents were taught to read on a thing called McGuffey readers, and these McGuffey readers consisted of passages of the Bible. So people actually used to learn to read and actually used to learn literacy by reading the Bible in the school systems. But then all of a sudden, you had a bunch of liberals that decided to come in and say, no, we got to completely ban religion altogether. Freedom from religion. And see, the thing is that if a teacher is praying in the classroom, or if students are praying or what have you, or if even if a teacher is giving out Bibles, that student doesn't have to pray. That student doesn't have to take a Bible. So therefore, as long as that is allowed, which of course it will be, I mean, if everybody else is participating, you have a right not to if you don't want to. Then fine, don't participate in it. Don't do it. It's your right to not engage, to not do that. But I'll tell you, as soon as they started taking prayer out of school and they started wanting nothing to do with God in the school system, that's when we started seeing a lot of violence take place, bullying take place, increased bullying take place. And it's created a lot of negative problems. And as a result, we have counselors that are in the schools. We have tried to institute all of these different types of programs to eliminate or to fill the same void that was created when Christianity was taken out, when God was taken out. So, and it hasn't worked. You have drug usage that's increasing in the school systems, as I know that Nathan opposes along with me. Nathaniel opposes along with me. So, yeah, it's really created a lot of problems that have taken place in the school system. Because I'm going to tell you, if you had God in the schools again, you wouldn't see the drug problems that we're having today. You wouldn't see the bullying take place that we have today. And you would see a lot of these issues that are taking place begin to dissolve.
All right.
You would see a lot of moral issues begin to dissolve as well.
All right. So since you both agree, we'll go ahead and move on.
Wait,
We're
hold on,
looking.
Patrick,
All right.
hold on. Nathaniel, I have a question for you.
What?
You say that it's okay to express your religion in school, right?
Yeah.
Now, going to school, you are against some religions.
I'm not against. I make jokes about them because I think anything should be allowed to be joked about.
Now, I understand, but you joke about how people should supposedly quit with their religion.
And
Isn't
Patrick,
that
that's
true?
a joke.
Well, some people think that that joke is controversial. Now, I'm not saying I find it controversial, but some people do.
Well, I'm sorry if those people find it controversial. Comedy can be a controversial thing. I just think that a joke should be a joke, and that's it.
I see. I see.
So wait, what's the joke?
Nathaniel, would you like
Catholics.
to clarify? Yeah, thank you.
I mean, there's no one
Catholics.
specific jokes. There's just jokes about all religions that happen.
Oh, okay.
Especially Catholics and Scientology, right, Nathaniel?
Right.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on and let Bo have the next question. That was
All
an
right.
awkward silence.
Well, Patrick just
what
needs to get over jokes.
what are your guys' opinions on fake news and just media lying about things on purpose? Especially things like the PewDiePie incident and Donald Trump. And if you're not familiar with the PewDiePie incident, the media is accusing him of being a Nazi because he made one anti-Semitic joke in video. So you take it from there.
We'll start with Caden.
Okay, well, yeah. Being the first victim of fake news when I was accused of causing homosexual kids to kill themselves back in 2012 by the Young Turks. Yeah, I think it's a big problem. It's just a shame that people weren't realizing that this fake news stuff was going on back then, especially when there was not one case that they could have revealed that where an incident like that occurred, according to their accusation. So, yeah, it is a problem. Uh, they use their media platforms as bully pulpits. And what we're now seeing is that a lot of these alternative news organizations like Breitbart, like Daily Caller, and various websites like that are beginning to rise up and replace the mainstream media. And they're calling them out and they're exposing their hypocrisy and they're losing power. The mainstream media is imploding. 75% of the American voters believe that the mainstream media was pulling for Hillary Clinton in the last election. Around 75%, as reported by thehill.com. It's insane. And the media is clearly biased in this country. They are basically serving as the propaganda wing for the Democratic Party, and it's not what journalism is supposed to be. It's supposed to be unbiased, but when you have biased journalism existing on the liberal side, you also have to have it on the other side, the conservative side, in order to offer the balance.
Yes,
Nathaniel.
I almost completely agree with that. Fake
Yeah,
news is a problem, and it's on both sides. And we need to get that fixed because news isn't supposed to be biased. News is supposed to be the facts of what's happened.
right.
But when you have people create either fake facts or distance themselves from actual facts, the news comes off as fake. It's fake news. And
When
we
you
need to
think
fix
about
that.
it, when you think about it, modern mainstream media is slowly turning into Nazi propaganda because it's just like what Hitler did in the 40s. He told everybody that Jews were below human, and the media is trying to do that to big, iconic figures in society to try to paint them as someone who is not a good person when sometimes they can be good people. Donald Trump and his family are a prime example of that. PewDiePie is another prime example. Uh, even even some people as low on the totem pole as Keemstar have been victims of fake news. And Caden, you are definitely a victim of fake news.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, you handled that very well for such a young child.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like when I was a little, when I was a lot smaller and I was in middle school, I was 13 years old at the time, and here all of a sudden, here I am, a Christian student that was raised by a pastor that was taught to love everybody, but to hate sin because it's harmful behavior, and I expressed my religious views on the radio pertaining to the entire case, and all of a sudden I'm blamed for kids killing themselves. And it's like, name one time that has happened, and it hasn't happened. It was defamation of character, but that's what the media does. And I've read a lot of the various cases that you've been talking about pertaining to a lot of these other public figures where the media has attempted at taking them out, and it's the same exact stuff that's happening. They're trying to take out people that they do not like, and they make up complete lies about them in order to destroy their character and try to destroy them and the influence that they have.
All right. So since we both agree here, we are going to move on. So, what are your guys' feelings on immigration and, in particular, a border wall? We'll start with Nathaniel.
Um, I think immigration can be a great thing. Immigration has helped this country before, and it probably will later. Right now, I can see
But
the hesitation of it, and I can somewhat support some of it,
do
but
you,
some of it is a little
do you
over
agree
the top.
with illegal immigration as well? Even if it's like good people coming in, but it's illegally. Do you agree with that?
Well, illegal immigrants are a different story because they are illegal. Now, I think we should take different precautions about them instead of just sending them back over or something. But they are illegal, so if they are illegal, we need to either A, make them become legal, get them a green card, and have them be a legal citizen, or find some other alternative than breaking maybe them up from a family of their kids that are legal American citizens.
Okay.
All right.
Spawn back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. All right. When immigrants, because see, here's the thing that oftentimes the liberal left tries to do. They try to automatically associate illegal immigrants with legal immigrants. They always do that. I mean, I was watching the Super Bowl, and a Budweiser commercial came on. Okay, and of course, like I said earlier, I don't even like the stuff, and then they put this ad on, I like it even less. But there was a Budweiser commercial that was on there about talking about the history of the Budweiser company, how this guy came over from Germany that was an immigrant, and all the people in the city of New York absolutely, hated him because he was an immigrant. He was coming over here. He was not a natural born citizen. So therefore, a lot of these people would not offer him a job. And when the Irish came over here, my core ancestry is Irish. When the Irish came over here and they went to New York, there were signs up everywhere that said, help wanted, Irish need not apply. So they prevented Irish immigrants from getting employment. But the difference is that the person who started the Budweiser company, along with my ancestors, is that they came over to the United States legally. They went through the legal process. And there's a clear difference between somebody who legally comes into the United States and somebody who illegally enters. Because we oftentimes hear where they say, well, we're only going to send back the people, deport the people that do not have a criminal record. Every single illegal immigrant that is in this country has a criminal record because their first act upon entering the United States was an illegal one. They are criminals because they broke one of the most important laws that we have for non-U.S. citizens, and that's not to enter our country without the proper authorization. So, yes, they have a criminal record. They entered our country illegally. And if they really wanted to become a United States citizen and they had an overwhelming majority of respect for this country, they would not have violated our laws. They would have gone through the right process. If I want to become a citizen of Jamaica, if I want to become a citizen of Mexico, if I want to become a citizen of Great Britain, I am going to apply for citizenship. And I am not going to violate their laws by entering the country without the proper authorization. Because I have respect for that nation. I want to be a part of it, right? So I'm going to follow their laws, and I'm going to make sure that I respect their laws because I have respect for that country, and I want to become a part of it. But here's the thing. A lot of times we have people saying, well, we don't need a wall. We don't need any of that. All that we need to do is just have this, big, beautiful bridge. We need to be building bridges, not walls, and all this stuff that's being said. And the truth is that a lot of these legal immigrants that are coming over here from Mexico, the legal ones, the legal immigrants are fleeing drug cartels. They're fleeing violence. And they're coming to the United States legally to escape those people that live over there that are part of these cartels. Now, if we do not secure the border and we do not have a wall, the problems of Mexico will become the problems of the United States. And the cartels that they sought to escape over in Mexico, the legal Mexican immigrants, the Mexican cartels will follow the legal immigrants over here. And I think that we owe it to our legal Mexican immigrants to secure the border and prevent the problems that they tried to seek refuge from following into the United States. Because if those problems come into the United States, where are they going to go now? Canada? Yeah, Canada will protect them. Canada doesn't believe in any of that stuff. I mean, especially under Trudeau. So no, the the problem is just going to continue following them. And that's why it's essential for us to secure the border and to enforce our immigration laws. And I'll say this too before I quit. One of the things that Nathaniel had suggested was granting a thing called amnesty, and amnesty is where you grant citizenship to the illegal immigrants that are presently here to make them legal. We tried that. See, we had already tried that back in 1986. It was called the Simpson-Mazzoli Act, and it was a bipartisan bill that was actually signed by Ronald Reagan, and it was supposed to do just that: secure the border, but grant illegal immigrants legal status, which granted that citizenship to over 3 million illegal immigrants. Now, if that didn't work before, why would we say that that would work now? Because that solution was supposed to solve the problem back then, but it didn't work, because now here we are several years later in 2017 trying to present the same solutions that they presented back in 1986 to the same problem that exists in 2017, which is the same problem that existed back in 1986. It's not going to work. We already tried that at one point. That was a conservative position, but it didn't work. So, conservatives have the mentality, well, if it doesn't work, then try something different. So what we must do is secure the border and deport the immigrants that are here illegally and make them come in the legal way so we can properly vet them.
All right. So, we'll stay on the same topic. We'll just change it up a bit. But what are your views on the immigration ban, in the Middle East and primarily Muslim-based countries?
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing, and this is one of the things that's always funny. A lot of these countries that Donald Trump instituted these bans on are radicalized countries. All right, Iran is a radicalized country. So here's the thing, with radicalized people existing in these countries for several years, we've heard from the Obama administration that no, this is not, they're not actual Muslims, they're fake Muslims, they're just radicalized individuals. So therefore, they don't represent Islam. Islam is a peaceful religion. Well, if that's the case, then why are they calling these nations Muslim countries when they're radicalized? Because they're Muslim countries. And the truth is that this isn't a Muslim ban. The people that are part of these nations hate the United States. They recognize us as being the great Satan. All right, these are countries that consist predominantly of radicalized individuals. So the reason why Trump instituted this ban is to protect us from people that want us to die. If you are an American citizen and you're over in one of these radicalized countries that President Trump has placed a ban on, a travel ban on, if you walk in the local villages by yourself, you will be killed by the locals, as many people has testified. All right? You will be killed by the locals. They will take you out. So if we cannot safely walk on the local streets of these countries without worrying about being killed by these types of people, why in the world should we let them in our country? It doesn't make any sense. These are people that want death to America. And until we can find a way to determine the difference between the radicalized Muslims and the peaceful, Muslims that the liberals claim exists out there, we should not allow immigration from these nations. And this is also a temporary ban. And I believe it's over 80% of the world's Muslim population can still come to the United States. So it's not even a Muslim ban.
All right. Nathaniel, what's your response to that?
The ban that happened, I feel, could have gone better, because I can see why they did. I'm not one of these people who think every Muslim coming into America wants to hurt American citizens, but I can definitely see the argument. The only problem I had with this ban was that certain American citizens with green cards and stuff could not get back in. It took them hours and hours, sometimes days, to get back in to prove that they were an American citizen. So if they cleaned it up a little bit, it could actually maybe be a good idea. But the one that they implemented did not go over so well, and we should try improving it.
So how should we improve it?
Well, for the people who had a green card and were American citizens, they should have been allowed in. because they didn't know what was going on because they were in a different country. They didn't know why they weren't being allowed in. And and an improved system would be vetting, which is going through and seeing if these people had connections with terrorist organizations or if they were a danger or a threat to the U.S. And we just need to implement that better than we already did.
But how much time would that actually take to go through and run a background check on every individual person that comes into this country, Nathaniel? I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. That is a very good idea. But as of right now, we just don't have the means to do something like that for every single individual in this world that wants to come to the United States. You're talking about how long it takes for them to get back in with a green card that says they are legal citizens. But even if they want to come here on vacation, running a full background check of everybody they've ever met to see if they've ever had a connection with a terrorist organization would take way longer than days or hours or however long you said it takes for them to get back in legally.
Yes, it would, and I don't know exactly how long it would take, and it would take a long
Well,
time.
well, there's something else that I've got to add on to that because there's even a better argument. Um, Here's the thing: with a lot of these countries that Trump has instituted a ban on, the reason why we can't vet them is because we can't run background checks. They don't have a database for us to run background checks on. Okay, in these countries that consist predominantly of dirt huts and sand, you can't run background checks. They don't have the means of doing that. They don't have the registry databases for us to see who is and is not an affiliate of ISIS or of various terrorist organizations. So that's why we have to be very careful, and we can only rely on the information that we do have. So it's very risky for us to be just saying, okay, well, here we'll open up the door and let everybody come in and pray to God that none of you are terrorists. That's not very smart. That's why we lock the door to our homes every night. We don't want the bad people to come in. Is the world predominantly bad? No, but there are a lot of bad people out there that would like to do you harm if they knew that you left your door unlocked. Well, it's the same exact thing that we're dealing with on a national security level with a lot of these terrorists. Yeah, there are a lot of people that might be good that could come into the country, but the thing is that there's also people who wish to bring us harm that would take great advantage of that, and that's what we have to be careful of.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to a question. We're going to do a community question real fast. We'd like to see some serious questions, not anything stupid. Just get some a good question that a lot of people can agree on. That would be a good question for you guys. And we'll go ahead and just wait and look at the chat.
Controversial, but not stupid.
Right. We've already got 3 responses here saying the Black Lives Matter movement. So we'll go ahead and start with Nathaniel. I believe Caiden started last time. So we'll start with Nathaniel and go ahead and give your opinion on Black Lives Matter, if it's, your feelings on it.
Well, Black Lives Matter was like any other protest. It was a protest from the black people saying that they wanted things to change, which is completely justified, and they have the right to do that. The problem came from when some of these became violent, and that's a problem that needs to be solved. Because violence is never a good thing. I don't care if it's in a protest, I don't care what it is. At first, the movement seemed like a nice gesture for the community to show them that they want things to change, but then it turned violent very fast. And protests that turn violent is not legal, and we shouldn't accept those. So when we have peaceful protests, I think it's a great thing. But when those protests turn violent, that's when the problems start happening, and we shouldn't allow that.
All right, and Caiden, your thoughts on Black Lives Matter?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, from what it sounds like to me, with a lot of these, with a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement, okay, I heavily despise racism. I don't understand it, because you're basically saying, okay, because of the pigmentation of your skin, you are somehow lesser of a person than somebody who has lighter pigmentation. That's dumb. It's pigmentation, right? It's just as much as a characteristic as your eye color, as your hair color, and all that. It doesn't make any sense why you would have any type of disdain for somebody based upon a natural characteristic that they, externally have. I think it's dumb. But the thing is that with this Black Lives Matter movement, what has begun to happen is that they've developed this anti-cop to where all cops are bad, even though we have a large number of, black cops out there. They're saying that these police forces are racist, and they've advocated not for equality in many of these circumstances, but they're advocating for superiority. And what I feel that the Black Lives Matter movement has begun to evolve into is less of a civil rights movement, but more so of a black supremacy movement. Because, whether you want to admit it or not, yeah, you can be a racist, black person the same as you can be a racist white person. And to say that, only whites can be racist, that's a racial statement all in itself. Uh, so I think that uh, you know we should be fighting racism. I don't think that we're doing anybody any favors uh, by promoting racial division, which I feel that the Black Lives Matter movement has engaged in. All lives matter, not just Black Lives Matter, and it should not be controversial to say that all lives matter. But I think that this has been used for more purposes of superiority than equality. And it's a shame, because I think that Martin Luther King would be very disappointed if he saw the way that the movement has gone today. I think that predominantly it doesn't matter if you're black or if you're white, you can succeed. And another thing that I really have a problem with is this whole thing about white privilege. Now, do you have any questions pertaining to that lined up?
I don't personally.
Okay.
Do
Okay. I'll go.
does Bo or
Neither do I. I
Okay.
don't have any.
I'll go ahead and throw the white privilege thing in there then. Because, see, here's the thing. We've oftentimes heard about white privilege. White people are privileged, okay? Now, here's the problem with that. The Black Lives Matter movement has been responsible for, using this type of talking point. White privilege exists in America. When you instill that in the minds of black youth, that white privilege exists, even though we have laws on the books that prohibits racial division, even though we have laws on the books that maintain that we have racial equality, even though the overwhelming majority of companies in this day and age have policies in their books prohibiting racial discrimination, they're still saying that there's white privilege. When you instill that in the minds of black youth at an early age, that white people are privileged, they are taught, beginning at that age, that to be born black is a disprivilege. And that's wrong. You are telling them that they are at a less advantage than everybody else, that they are starting off as a loser, and that they have a system working against them. And when they have that many of them give up, and they are instilling this failure type of mindset into the black youth, and it grows into adulthood, and it's been going on for quite some time. And what we must do is that we have to overcome racism, and you do that by not talking about it, by not promoting racial division, by not trying to pivot whites against blacks, and by promoting the colorblind society that Martin Luther King envisioned. Stop creating like these like the black caucus that we have at Congress. Get rid of that. Get rid of these organizations that are solely to represent blacks, and let's represent all Americans and strive for the colorblind society that Martin Luther King envisioned. We're getting away from that to where we are promoting racial division. And it has to end. We have to start recognizing, the external qualities of a person's skin, or the external qualities altogether, as being no different than eye color or hair color. We have a black caucus that's in Congress right now. I think that that's just as stupid as having the blue-eyed caucus in Congress, a caucus that consists solely of people who are blue-eyed. That's dumb. Quit basing entire groups upon a physical characteristic like that, and let's move beyond it. I think that we're at a point in America where we should be striving to the colorblind society envisioned by Martin Luther King, and it's time for us to end the racial division that's existed in this nation for years. It's got to come to an end.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our last question. Also a community question. What are your thoughts on transgender bathrooms? Um, Caden, you can go ahead and start.
Okay. Can you repeat that one more time? Yeah, repeat that
Um,
one more time.
what? Do you think transgender bathrooms are? Do you think they should be allowed in society?
I don't know. Let's ask a lot of the girls at our high school if they are comfortable with me going in the girls' bathroom. If just because somebody identifies as being an opposite, uh, member of the sex that they were born with, that doesn't make them a girl. It doesn't make like if I would identify as a girl tomorrow, that doesn't make me a girl. And I'm curious to see how Nathaniel feels about this. But you are born either a boy or a girl. That's biology. All right. And to deny biology, saying that people can sway their gender however they feel, that's ignoring science. And Democrats have often claimed to be the party of science, to be the party of all this. Well, they're denying science when they advocate for transgenderism. It's completely abhorrent to scientific facts. You're either born a boy or a girl. And here's the thing. When I was young and I was little and I was growing up in elementary school, we were told that we are to be comfortable with ourselves, be comfortable with how we were made, with how we were created. Okay? But now all of a sudden we're being told, well, hey, if you're not comfortable with how you were born, if you're not comfortable with your obvious characteristics, separate from sexual orientation, because like your gender is obviously who you are. It's an external characteristic, as I was referring to, that can be confirmed that you were born that way, as compared to these internal conflicts that liberals often try to profess were inborn. The thing is that you were obviously either born a boy or a girl, and rather than trying to change who you are by taking testosterone supplements, yeah, that's completely natural, right? They try to say that all this stuff is normal. Taking shots of testosterone when you're a female to try to feel like a boy, that's far from being a natural type of substance. That's destructive, and it's completely messing with your emotion. You're trying to be something that you're not, and in the end, it's going to emotionally affect you.
All right. We'll go ahead and move on to Nathaniel.
Wait. I have something relatively controversial to say.
Okay.
I was doing some research right here, and I found that most genders, in my opinion, have very stupid names. See, right here, I'm looking at a gender titled neither. I'm looking at a gender titled other. I'm looking at a gender titled trans with an asterisk at the end. I am looking at, what is that? That's 9 genders that start with trans asterisk.
There are actually, I think, 150.
Now, I'm talking about not just trans, but
I know.
trans with an asterisk.
Yeah, there's like 150 genders that liberals have come up with.
That just kind of blows my mind that somebody would sit there, come up with that, and then gain a large enough following that it would be identified as a gender.
Right.
All right. Nathaniel. We'll go ahead and move on to you.
Well, I shouldn't be allowed to just say I identify as a woman now and be allowed to walk into a woman's restroom.
I hope not.
However, if I do feel that way and I go through the procedure to become a woman, then I don't see why you wouldn't go to the woman's restroom.
Huh. Now let me ask you something here. Do you think that becoming a woman solely, excuse me here, but do you think that in order to become a woman, the only thing that is dependent is having your genitals removed if you're a male?
Well, no, I think if you feel you're born a woman, you're born a woman.
Why? I feel like I was born a dog, but my parents don't take me to the vet.
Well, that's just how people feel. I don't personally feel that way, so I can't
Right.
explain how they
But
feel.
but here's the thing. Why do you think that, your gender is based upon however you feel? It's a delusion.
But some people feel as if they were, if they were born in the wrong body.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're saying is that there is a man. I was born. Okay, like let's say that I was that way, all right? So I am a man. I was born a man, but there is a woman living on the inside of me that's trying to come out. That's a superstitious belief. I mean, that's superstition. That's not, based upon science or anything.
Well, I can't explain how people feel because no one really knows how everyone feels.
Okay. Well, let's think about this. Okay, gender dysphoria is what this was called before. Okay, gender dysphoria. It was recognized as being a type of mental disorder by the World Health Organization. Okay, now I want you to understand this: a delusion is something that is a egocentric or idiocentric belief or impression that's firmly maintained despite being contradicted by what is generally accepted as a rational argument or as reality. And it can a lot of times be a symptom of a mental disorder. So the thing is, when reality is that you are born either a boy or a girl, you're saying all of a sudden that you're not.
I'm saying
You're
you feel differently.
But here's another thing. Let me ask you this. All right, you feel that you were born a boy, right?
Yes.
Okay, I hope so. So you feel that you were born a boy. Now let's think about this. Okay, you have never known anything other than being in a boy's body, right?
Right.
You've never been able to feel anything other than being in a boy's body, right?
That is correct.
So how can you possibly understand how a girl feels when you have never been in a girl's body?
Well, I don't know because I don't feel that way.
But you can't.
Feel that way.
You can't feel that way because you have never been able to experience what it is like to be in a girl's body because you were born in a boy's body. So what is happening is that these, people who are identifying as this or who feel this way are saying, I feel like a girl while they're born a boy, but how can they feel like a girl when they've never been able to be in a girl's body and they'll never be able to be in a girl's body because they were not born that way? Okay, in other words, they're saying, I feel like I'm a girl, but they don't know how a girl feels because they weren't born in a girl's body. So this type of feeling they might want to identify as being a girl, but as for how a girl actually feels, they are completely unable to feel that way exactly because they were not made that way. All right? Now, here's the thing. That is the definition of a delusion. Because I'm going to tell you, even if you go and you have this, sex surgery where they, remove your genitals and put something else in there, I hate to tell you, but you still have, your original chromosomes. You were talking about chromosomes earlier and how important that is. Well, you're either born with an XX or an XY chromosome, and those don't change. So genetically, you are still the original gender of your birth. Biologically, you are still the original gender of your birth. Scientifically, you are still the original gender of your birth. And rather than encouraging people to embrace this delusion, we should be trying to help them and get them to be comfortable with how they were born rather than trying to basically pander and cater to this delusion by telling them it's perfectly normal to feel that way. It's not normal. It's abnormal. It's the furthest thing from being normal. And it's causing them to embrace a delusion rather than accepting reality and learning to cope and deal with reality.
Well, no one knows how the brain works. So the brain.
Well, yeah, that's what we have neurologists for and psychiatrists. And that's why it's been categorized as a mental disorder.
And no one knows how that works yet. So we don't know whether or not they feel that way.
Well, we do know how it works because it's a delusion, and delusions are like what I explained. Delusions are basically contradictions of what is reality, what is fact. And fact is, a boy has an XY chromosome, a girl has an XX chromosome. And when you fail to recognize chromosomes that you were born with, genetically born with, and you're saying, no, I'm not that way at all,
Um,
then no, you're mixing stuff up. And the thing is that gender is not a feeling; it's biology.
okay, so what if you are born with both? Um, you're born both genders. You have
Both
male and
genitals,
female. Yeah.
both genitals. You're saying, okay. Well, see, oftentimes this has been used by a lot of members of the liberal left to try to trip people up, because I've heard this argument too numerous times, where people say, well, "What if you're born with both genitals, male and female?" The thing is that now we live in a day and age where we can do a thing called genetic testing. All right, we can test the genes to find out how a person was originally supposed to be born. Okay, and what we are able to do is that we are able to go in genetically and find out if this uh, baby at the time has an XY chromosome or an XX chromosome, and if they have whichever chromosome is determined through these uh, tests and stuff, genetic tests, then that is what they use to make the determination on how the baby was supposed to be born. But that's very rare stuff that happens.
All babies are born, however, with a Y chromosome. I mean an X chromosome. It's not until later until the X takes over. So if they're born with both, how are we supposed to know?
No, you have an XY chromosome at birth. If you are a boy, you have an XY chromosome at birth. If you are a female, you have an XX chromosome at birth.
No, every baby is born with an X chromosome.
I know, X or XY. Your chromosomes, your chromosomes have formed while you're a baby when you're born. I'm talking about once you have been born and you are outside of the mother's womb, you either have an XY chromosome at that point or an XX chromosome. You're
Yes,
not
that's,
you're not just an it. You're either male or female, but at that point because it's fully developed baby.
yes,
The
that's
test
true.
the tests are conducted after the baby's been born. Yeah, it's yeah, you're not still making all these huge changes outside after you're outside of the mother's womb. I mean, you of course develop and everything like that, but the chromosomes and all that and the genetics are already built into you. That's why it's fully developed child.
All right. So we're a bit overdue here. We're going to go ahead and wrap the stream up. Uh, we will probably be back in the next week, 2 weeks, with another debate. Just leave comments. Who you'd like to see? Would you like it to be on? And but I'll go ahead and leave off with a final statement from each of you about just the whole thing in general, on just your thoughts on politics, and you have 1 minute each.
Okay, yeah, well, of course, thanks so much for having me to come on. And, like I said before, I am a conservative. I believe in social conservatism, fiscal conservatism, and the belief in peace through strength, which means securing the country and improving our military. And conservatism is overall based upon wanting to see people succeed, wanting to see people be the best that they can possibly be, and doing the things necessary in order to ensure that. That's why we believe in lessening the government's hold on you financially, and limiting taxation, limiting government spending, giving you more money, which is money that you've worked hard for. We don't like seeing it wasted by the government. And on a moral basis, that's why we oppose things like drug usage and things that concern your health, harmfully concern your health, and why we believe that should not be promoted by government. And that ranges from drug usage to homosexual marriage and stuff like that, as we discussed before, and also including abortion. The Constitution says that it was the Declaration of Independence that defined life as being an unalienable right. We have a right to life. So I think that fetuses and children, babies, should have a right to experience that. But yeah, I'm a conservative. We're based upon the belief of ensuring that people can have the best life that they possibly can, and that harm and and things that are not beneficial to you are not promoted by government.
All right. Nathaniel, your final statement.
My final statement is going to be quick and brief since we're running out. I would just like to thank you guys for having me. I thought this was a great debate. Now, me personally, I think politics and government still has a lot to go over. That's why I think people need a debate and we still need to talk about these things. And it shouldn't be so cemented in one or the other. So that's why I think we should keep debating. And thank you.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Glad to have both of you on the show. And like I said, just give suggestions. Either DM me or Bo on Instagram, and or leave a comment on this video, and we'll be sure to consider those suggestions. But anyway, thank you once again for watching, and we'll be back, like I said,
See
in
you in
another
the
week or
next
two.
one, boy.